Deku post battle trials will just be chilling. Class going as usual, Deku getting extra homework because he grew up with Shield, he's smart as hell. This will go for another week or so until Deku is finally told about the USJ. He of course has his stuff signed and his in canon gets onto the bus. The regular talk about who's the strongest goes down. People voting Deku for what they've seen. Everyone in the class still wanting more answers on his quirk, which I'm gonna say Deku would tell him. Going into detail about how it works, how it feels to be intangible, even dropping a little hint on his super move. But this is before he's interrupted by the bus pulling up, everyone getting disappointed getting out before making their way into the USJ. Like in canon, Deku geeks out a little bit. This was the first time he'd been there, and the first time he'd met Pro Hero 13. He couldn't stop staring around the place. Pro Hero 13 gave her speech in the background as Deku makes his way next to Aizawa, scanning the place as Aizawa stares forward. This is until something catches his eye. Right in the middle of the USJ, straight away, Deku would tap Aizawa on the shoulder, pointing down as a mist figure begins forming itself. Like in canon, Aizawa jumps down, yelling at the class to stay there. This time, he calls for Deku's help too, having a hunch it wasn't gonna be easy. Deku smirks, following too, jumping into the air and activating his quirk. His clothes fall through him as his gym clothes underneath start showing, He sinks down to the floor, Korigiri completely forming, bringing hordes of villains in all at once. Aizawa makes it to the floor, staring his way through the horde of the filler villains, losing his sight on Korigiri, who teleports up to the top. Once he teleports, Deku finally comes out of the floor, flying up into the air and getting a good view of the total number of locations. The total number and locations of the villains, seeing the Nomu and Shigaraki at the back and just knowing they were the most dangerous. He's then sidetracked by the Mist Villain's warp gates appearing all around him, spanning the entire USJ, classmates falling to the floor as they all are scattered. Deku, seeing this, knows what he has to do. He falls back down after going intangible before turning it off and slamming into a horde of villains next to Aizawa. Him using his ultimate move on one of them, slamming the entire horde back. As soon as he does this, he tells Aizawa the news, how everyone's split up and how there are two up there that look dangerous. Aizawa takes this to heart, both of them together making short work of the fodder until Shigaraki finally speaks up. Nomu, get rid of those two pests over there. Nomu cracking its head to stare them down before running like an animal at them. Deku was barely able to see him coming, just activating his quirk in time. The Nomu slips right through him before attacking Aizawa. Deku now behind it sees it just ragdoll Aizawa, deciding to use his new technique. You know the one back at the ball throw when he was using his whole arm? Yeah, that. Deku slams his fist into the Nomu, going from back to legit out the front again, concentrating as hard as possible as he deactivates his quirk, starting at the elbow and following it down as quickly as possible. The Nomu doesn't even have time to react before its organs are completely cooked. Its ribs are broken as it's sent flying. It zooms and slams into the mountains in the mountain region. Deku would straight away grab Aizawa, checking his condition. He took the hit hard and was completely knocked out, but he looked alive. Deku bandaged him up a little bit with his uniform before slightly moving off the battlefield. Then he stared back at Shigaraki, scratching, looking like a fiend at Deku. He cheated! Grah, he cheated! Deku knows he has to do this quickly. Korigiri half the way through forming next to him as Deku disappears once more. He drops through the floor, moving himself in a way that he wanted to go before deactivating it. Right away, he flies through the top before dipping down once more, building up speed and force flying towards the two villains in front of him before finally deactivating his quirk. He flies right in front of the pair, throwing a haymaker shot at Shigaraki's gut. He couldn't even react in time as Deku's fist was already midway through his gut. Quirk active until he released it. Shigaraki feels a shockwave ripple through his body. His spine rattles as like the Nomu he's sent flying. Deku spins and gives Korigiri the same treatment, this time with a backhand, but his fist goes right through him. Deku's shocked by this, going underground once more and thinking quickly. He takes a deep breath in before concentrating, listening in on the footsteps above him, listening to the breathing, the heartbeats on the floor. He hears Korigiri getting closer and closer to Shigaraki's body, deciding to just go for it. Deku flies up once more. He decides to do a tester attack, sneaking Korigiri from behind and sending a slice down his entire body with his hand. Deku finally hits the metal part in the middle, smirking before slipping down once more. Now he knew he could hit him. He knew what he had to do, coming up for the last time, finally landing a punch on Korigiri, which takes him out for the count. He lands on the floor, running towards Aizawa, still concerned about him, stepping closer and closer. He watches as Aizawa slowly wakes up, pointing at Deku and flaring his eyes. Before he can even understand, he's smacked in the side of the body by the Nomu, slamming him into the staircase and riding Deku straight off. Saved by Aizawa, who barely activated his quirk in time. Deku blinks in and out of consciousness, watching as Aizawa rushed back to its master, picking both of them up before standing completely still. This is until the front of the door slams open. Deku gone completely is unable to watch this, watching as All Might and the teachers body the rest of the League of Villains. They lock the fodder up and the three main villains right there and then, putting them straight in Tartarus. Wolf-One in a distant place plots, once more, one of his plans failing, but another opening up. I don't know if that's the end of the part or not. I think so, yeah, I think that's the end of the part. Sorry, where am I? Oh yeah, I'll keep going, whatever. I'll keep going. Deku sits at the hospital after taking that slam from the Nomu paws, drifting in and out of consciousness. The teachers and classmates alike visiting him. They all had their own battles like in canon, but they saw what Deku did in the middle too, single-handedly protecting Aizawa, defeating the main three villains and keeping them all safe. All they could do was wait. Due to this, Aizawa in this timeline isn't that hurt. He got slammed, but he never got his head smashed, so, you know. In Deku's unconscious state, all he can feel is falling, like its quirk is perpetually active. It feels weirdly warm, kind of living in it until he finally hears a voice. The voice of Aizawa talking to him, telling him that the UA Sports Festival is coming up in about a week, and that if he doesn't get better soon, he won't be able to participate. Off of pure willpower, Deku would finally wake up. After being out cold for 2 days, something in his body would have changed while he slept. Something finally being reset. He would use the next few days just to kind of chill a little bit, sitting in Recovery Girl's office, still with that warm feeling around him. He finally... Sorry, we're back. Finally being healed enough to get out and about, going back to class and getting told about how awesome he was at the USJ. Aizawa even agreeing with them. Deku does, like, the chopper reaction. You know, like that. Oh my god. Yeah, anyway. After school that day, Deku would likely just go out. This time with Mirio. His injuries feeling way better. Them deciding to do a nice little spar. They stand opposite each other, the bell going off, and just two of them going in. Deku circles to the left before throwing a punch, which, due to his injury, leaves him open. Mirio, of course, takes advantage of this, going in for a punch of his own. Deku, as he hyperextends his arm... Going for a punch on Deku as he hyperextends his arm. His punch completely slipping through him. Hey, wait! He's cut off by Deku, slogging him in the face. Mirio on the floor gets a little bit pissed. Hey, no quirk usage, didn't we agree on that? Deku looks at him confused. I didn't use my quirk. Mirio looks at him again, surprised, getting up and once again going back to fight. Once again, Deku phases just in time, his body almost sensing it around him as he does it off of instinct. Mirio falls right through and is socked. Deku promises once more that he isn't using his quirk. Mirio, confused by this, knowing Deku wouldn't lie, begins to do some testing. They go ham on testing for about 2 hours straight before at the end of the day figuring out what happened. To them, Deku's quirk kind of evolved, acting like a defense off of instinct, but in reality, Deku's quirk stayed the exact same. Now if you've seen Vigilantes, I'm gonna go on that type of angle. Deku was originally born with the quirk of permeation, but not just any permeation, active permeation. Meaning, the hairs on his body are hypersensitive as well, being able to sense attacks in a way. It's like a spidey sense. If he's slammed by the Nomu, sorry, him being slammed by the Nomu knocked it back into him, his, his normal quirk, which I'm going to make use of in the UA Sports Festival, which is coming up right now. If you don't really understand that, by the way, his like original quirk was like this active permeation, but because his mum told him not to use this quirk, it like disappeared, you know? I don't know. It it'll make sense. The sports festival will arrive early. Deku's sitting in the locker room scrolling on his phone. Like in canon, he's approached, but this time by Todoroki and Bakugo. Todoroki seeing him as the biggest threat, and Bakugo still mad for that whooping that he got in the hero training. They all go their separate ways, Deku liking the competitive spirit, but taking their threats very seriously. They all walk out and eventually Bakugo is called to the stand to do a speech. Like in canon, he does the whole, "I'm gonna win" thing, this time staring Deku down. The first event is chosen as the obstacle course. Everyone lines up as Midnight gets into position. Deku checking his surroundings about midway through the pack. Todoroki up front, Bakugo up left. He thought of a plan before finally Midnight shot her starter's pistol. Straight away the floor around everyone froze, Todoroki not playing any games. Bakugo shoots above everyone having dodged, and Deku fell through the floor. Maneuvering himself mid-fall, he once again shoots it out. Soaring from between Todoroki and Bakugo, who only stare as he takes the lead. He gains distance on them, 10 meters, 15 meters, still in the air as a bunch of one-pointers approach Deku. Deku, completely unfazed by this, begins to fall. The crowd in entirety of the first year watching as the two robots throw punches at him, completely phasing through him as once again he dropped through the earth. The crowd goes crazy. His stocks are going through the roof. Once again he appears, this time in front of the 0-pointers. He cracks a smirk, clocking his fist back. The cameras zoom in on him and slow down. Aizawa explaining what's about to happen as Deku slams a punch into one of the 0-pointers' legs. Everyone's silent for a second as the metal around the fist creaks and cracks. The 0-pointer's leg getting shot out from underneath it. The people behind him are completely stopped in their tracks, seeing the 0-pointer now falling in their direction. Some of them even need to run away as to not get crushed. The crowd can't help but cheer as Deku continues. Seeing the pit in the distance, Deku once again falls. This time he stays down. The crowd murmurs, bickering at each other about what happened. Before, in a flash, Deku shoots up. Him falling from so far down, it actually gave him the momentum to completely clear the pit. Everyone behind there knows they're cooked. Todoroki and Bakugo giving up on chasing him, just beginning to fight between each other instead. Deku completely blitzes the entire course, getting easy first place. The rest goes as canon, as does the cavalry battle, because genuinely I couldn't care about it. Now, what does change is the 1v1s. Unlike in canon, Deku dog washes Shinso. As soon as the match begins, Deku falls down, Shinso beginning to talk but kinda giving up, thinking Deku can't hear him underground. Deku then shoots up, not even using his special move, slamming Shinso in the stomach, completely one-shotting him, 200 pumping him. Deku's the winner of the first match, and he moves on to the next match with Todoroki. In this timeline, I'm going to say Deku doesn't end up having his little talk with Todoroki, instead going and chilling with the teachers up in the announcer's booth. He sits there and watches the matches, seeing it's him versus Todoroki next. Finally, he goes down into the locker rooms, starts stretching. Todoroki trying to approach him, but Deku phasing away, just thinking it was on some like, "I'm gonna beat you" or something like that. They're both called out, Deku appearing from the floor, people going crazy in the crowd. As Todoroki, he arrives too, I guess. Midnight aims her pistol up and shoots. Straight away Deku runs in, Todoroki shooting a geyser at Deku, low-key afraid of him, which Deku auto dodges, his new part of his quirk. He jumps into the air, Geyser shooting him as he drops once more. Todoroki tweaks, starting to look around him at the floor. Waiting until about 30 seconds later, Deku flies up, hitting this man in the chin with an uppercut. Todoroki is sent flying. Deku climbing up with his punches. Oh, Deku climbing up with his punches. Deku climbing up again punches him clean in the stomach midair before spinning and kicking this man Todoroki back onto the floor. Todoroki saves himself with some ice, barely half knocked out. Once again, he looks at Deku, getting his daddy issues giving him flashbacks before his body, almost like a fight or flight, begins using his fire. A huge gust of fire flying right at Deku, who once again face tanks it. The fire going right through him as Deku starts walking Todoroki down. Todoroki uses his ice at Deku, as once again, Deku's encased in ice. This time, Deku unfazing his arm in a quick succession would send a crack flying straight through it. The geyser splits open and shatters as Deku sinks once again, shooting up into the air about half a second later, flying at Todoroki with his fist already cocked back. Todoroki sends everything he's got at Deku, doing the whole impact thing he does like in canon, but unlike in canon, Deku slips right through it, flying straight through the attack and sinking through the floor behind him, appearing once again and straight breaking this man's back. Pause. He sends him flying throughout the entire ring, shooting out of bounds and completely knocking him out. He's announced the winner, staring daggers at Bakugo, deciding to go a little bit harder on him. The finals are announced and the two make their way to the stage, everything quieting down as they're introduced. Both of them getting into fighting form, all the third years and second years watching in the stands, even those weird ass business students stop and stare as the match is commenced. Deku runs in like with Todoroki, this time not going underground. He runs in at Bakugo, running the fade with him, straight throwing hands, like in the Heroes vs Villains. Like in the Heroes vs Villains though, Bakugo can't hit him. Deku's body auto-reacting to his punches and explosions, activating his quirk for him off of instinct defensively. Deku, completely focused on offense, would start flogging Bakugo, slipping punches and hitting him in the liver, phasing through Bakugo's punches and slamming him in the jaw. It was low-key looking unfair for Bakugo, until Bakugo blinded Deku. Deku, unable to see, jumps backwards. Bakugo going for the offense, flying into the air and using his howitzer. Sorry, my bad. He's using his howitzer impact. Deku, hearing him going up, his vision beginning to clear, decides to stand and tank it, deciding it's better to counterattack in this situation. He readies his fist, focusing on his timing. His entire body down to the soles of his shoes permeate. Fist readied as Bakugo flies down at him. They both stare at each other with serious looks before Bakugo sends an explosion. Like you would think it would happen, it goes right through him, destroying the ground underneath him. Deku, feeling this happen, would jump up, his fist already mid-air as it phases through Bakugo's arm, connecting with his stomach as Deku feels this. Deku, feeling this, would unfaze his knuckles and fingers. The force shoots through the entire body of Bakugo before he coughs up breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He's sent flying into the walls like Todoroki. Unsurprisingly, Deku wins his first place. His mum and David celebrating over the TV. The third years hyping him up and the crowd going wild as he receives his medal. Both Bakugo and Todoroki kinda respect him now. His power, his mastery over his quirk. Like, he's completely unscratched right now and they were out for the count. The sports fend. My bad. The sports fest would end and the class would once again go again. And that's it for this part. Pretty sure this was super long. Yeah, 18 minutes, that's not too bad. I'm gonna finish it in the next part though, trust me. Hope you like it. Hope you like the little power up. I thought it was a little bit fair since, you know, we've seen less people with, people with less training unlock their quirks, so. Anyway, catch you in the final part. It's 5:45 right now, and someone's walking around. Catch ya.